Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Paratalk. And on this episode, I am once again joined by Tom, and we're going to delve into the depths of some weird websites. Well, not so weird websites, but websites that are a little bit paranormal, I suppose. But anyway, without further ado, hello Tom, mate. How you doing?
Hello.
I'm
alright, thanks.
How's the completely settled in now? Have you completely moved, unpacked, and everything?
And I haven't unpacked, no.
Oh.
How long have I been here? About 2 months in this new house.
About
I haven't unpacked. Yeah. I've still got boxes of stuff everywhere. Mostly, though, my little office is set up. We've been doing loads of decorating, so slowly but surely things are getting sorted out, and it's feeling more like our own place.
So have you kind of, usually when you move, right, you kind of move to a new place. And there's that kind of time where you have to kind of adjust, and you feel like, you know, am I going to fit in with the neighbours? Have you sort of started saying good morning to the neighbours, or everybody's still a bit wary of you?
Oh no, it's actually quite a strange thing compared to where I used to live. In that you go out walking the dog, and everyone you pass says hello to you, and some people just stop and have a conversation with you. When I first moved here, I was a bit like, what the hell's going on? I wasn't used to it. Where I used to live, people just used to kind of like stare at you when you walk past, you know. I don't know what it is about this area, but people seem a lot more, you know, a lot happier to engage with people. And I don't know, it's strange because I've only moved like a couple of miles up the road, but it's a completely different atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know,
I've kind of lived in areas like that where, you know, you have a group of people, like where I live now. I mean, it's a couple of people I talk to, but in general, everyone just kind of keeps themselves to themselves. And they, you know, you might say good morning to someone, and I said when I first moved in, I said good morning to one lady, and she was like, looked at me like I don't know, stole her cat. It's just like, well,
yeah,
I'm just saying good morning. But yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, each to their own, really. Some people are a bit weird, and some people aren't. But hey ho, that is life, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's like the geography of the area, I guess. Like where I used to live, it was like, I don't know, it was like just a load of houses along the side of the A1, and it was just, everyone was a bit sort of, I don't know, it just felt separated from people, even though it was the same sort of setup, a street with houses. Here it's like, there's like houses, and then there's like a green area, and it just feels more like, and there's like a pub across the road, and it just feels like, yeah, you kind of, you know, everyone kind of mingles in, and it's just strange. It's just the layout of the streets, how it changes people's outlook and behavior and stuff.
Very
it's
much
interesting.
So. Yeah, I mean, you know, you can live in some places and you can be happy as Larry, and in other places you can live and you can think, oh, I hate it here. I hate everything about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, you are right there. It's, you know, I mean, saying that, I mean, you know, there are some estates that my friends have lived on, and I've loved them because there's always something going on. But I've been to other places where middle of nowhere, and it's kind of just weird, you know, but
yeah,
it's the way it is. But anyway, I was going to ask you, before we jump in and start looking at these websites, which this episode's about, how was the little mini, I don't know, what would you call it, your kind of spooky explores? Have you got any more planned?
I've been looking for some things I can do. Yeah, I just walked to an area where there was a murder had taken place about 100 years ago. And yeah, just had a look around, and you know, just explored the area and showed where things had happened, and you know, supposedly there's a ghost story there. So I've been looking for more things. I've got like a ton of books on local legends and stories and things. So I've been going through them, but I haven't really found I don't know, like a lot of them just seem to take place in random houses and old stately homes and things. And I've been looking for something a bit more interesting, really. You know, you could walk to any one of it, like a castle or an old house or something, and do a video there. But I like that one because it was just a random patch of grass next to the side of the road, and I wanted to just have a look at the area. But yeah, I haven't found anywhere just yet, but I'm looking.
I want to ask you is, you actually went to an area where, although it happened a long time ago, there was a murder, and you actually went to the spot where it happened.
Yeah.
Did you feel anything? Is it just you were in a wooded area? You were off a main road, but the road would have been in the olden days. I suppose the road would have still been there, but it would have been like a dirt track.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I suppose when you go to somewhere like that and you know the story, you kind of like. I was thinking, if I went there and I just had no idea what had happened in this place, would I feel any different? Would I just be walking through without any feeling of, oh, this is a bit creepy? But I definitely felt it. It felt kind of closed off from the road and a bit sort of. You kind of went down this big dip under a bridge, and it felt a bit sort of isolated and eerie down there. But I don't know whether that's just because I know the story of the area, and
yeah,
it's hard to tell really. Like you'd have to be able to go there. It'd be hard experiment to set up. You'd have to somehow send someone there who had no idea what was going on and say, see if you feel anything strange in this area.
If you did send someone there who had no idea of the area, they'd have to be of a certain disposition, because it's a wooded area. It's kind of secluded, and I mean, imagine there's a big water area, was it a canal, or was it a river or a canal when it runs next
it was a river.
And I mean, that in itself, imagine at night, that's going to be kind of scary anyway, because we're naturally the kind of people we're going to be looking out for ourselves and thinking, oh, I don't want anybody creeping up on me or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. It did have that sort of feeling about it. Like I say, it was, to get down to that area, you had to go through all this like thick undergrowth, and it was right down in a dip. And even though like there was quite a busy road nearby, you ended up in a little bit that felt really isolated from anywhere else, which is probably why it was a perfect place for a murder to take place. But just the location itself was a bit creepy anyway, just because of that, because it was isolated.
Have you thought about going to any buildings or kind of old sort of castles that are in your locale and doing a walk around in those kind of places?
I don't know. There is a lot of places like that in Newcastle, but I don't know. For one, a lot of time you've got to pay to get in, and you're just being there with like a tour guide or wandering around with a load of tourists, and it just doesn't really appeal to me that much. I'm trying to find like strange locations. There's actually a few places that sound interesting, but the legends about them only happen on certain times of the year. Like I can't remember if I've talked about this on a stream before, but there's a bridge very close to where I used to live, and it's just like a little nondescript bridge that goes under train tracks. And there's a story that a train driver had hit someone, and then in his remorse, he'd gone back to this area where he'd hit someone, and he'd hung himself in that tunnel, like on the bridge. And the legend is, if you go to this particular tunnel at midnight on New Year's, as the clock strikes in the new year, basically, the 1st of January, and you walk through the bridge with your eyes closed, you'll feel the hanging body of this train driver. You're like, you'll hit up against him as you walk through. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any truth to this. I've looked into it, trying to find like if there's any story, if there's any like news stories about a train driver hanging himself or anything. I can't find anything, but it's a weird local legend. But yeah, apparently it only really counts if you do it on New Year's Day, as the clock strikes in the new year. So, it'd be a hard one to do, because I'd have to go down there while everyone else is partying on New Year's Eve.
Well,
it'd be hard.
Those ones are interesting, because sometimes I kind of look at those and I think, well, how much of that is urban legend? How much of that is people telling stories? And then those stories get slightly sort of, they grow over time. And you start out with something that may have a little bit of truth to it, and then 5-10 years down the road of people telling those stories over and over, and they add their little bit. You've got this whole saga of an event that happened. But it's not to say that there aren't hauntings out there that happen regularly, like on a cycle. Every year at a certain time, an apparition will be seen or something will happen, and those things are documented, and they have happened, and they do happen. You're more braver than I am, because, walking in a tunnel with your eyes closed in the pitch dark in the middle of the night, midnight, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd probably have to take someone with me. Yeah. This is in the middle of Bencham as well, which is, it's not like the roughest area, but I don't know. I imagine there'd be some strange characters around at that time of night.
Yeah.
There's another one as well. It's not like a particular date, but I think it only happens at midnight. There's a graveyard that has this really weird gravestone, it basically looks like a 4-poster bed with 3 children lying in the bed.
Right.
And there's a story that if you run around it 12 times at midnight, the ghosts of these children are supposed to come out, or something like that. But that's another one where it's the story about the story behind the gravestone is that 3 children died in a house fire or something like that.
Okay.
But I think if you'd actually look into the story, the children died at different dates, and it wasn't in a house fire. So, the legend and the actual facts don't match up, but still seems like an interesting place to check out one day. I might do that.
A long time ago, I had a friend who did the whole, I don't know if it was a thing you was at school, but when I was at school, we'd always have these things that you shouldn't do. And one of them was, you shouldn't say a certain thing in front of the mirror 3 times. And if you do, you'll see a face or whatever, or you'll drop dead or whatever it might be. And there was this thing going around school. This is way back in the 80s. And there was a thing going around school where you would say your own name in front of the mirror, looking into the mirror. You would see the face of yourself, like as an old person, on your deathbed sort of thing. And we were kids. We're doing it. We're just mucking about. We're around a friend's house, or a friend of a friend. I didn't really know them, but I was in some of their classes and stuff. And they said it. They did it, and they ran out the bathroom screaming, going, I saw it. And they're like, what did you see? I saw my face. I was old man dead. And we're like, what? We don't know whether he was just trying to scare us, or he imagined it, or something did happen. But, our imagination is an amazing thing. And if you want to see something, you usually can see something. Not to say that that's it, everything is imagination. I'm just saying that you're kids, and you kind of hype yourselves up a little bit.
And there is something about if you stare at your own reflection in the dark for long enough, you do see your face, your features start to change. And whether that's anything paranormal or whether it's just some kind of optical illusion, I don't know.
Yeah, that's more of I think more of a brain thing, where your brain starts to kind of configure what it's seeing and reinterpret it. But there are cases where people have done that and seen other things in the mirror, seen other people behind them that haven't been there.
Yeah. There's that thing about, I can't remember what it is exactly, but something about if a woman eats an apple whilst combing her hair in the mirror at a certain time of the day, she'll see her true love behind her. There used to be something like that. Like there's an old, like, I don't know, an old wives' tale or something. Yeah. And there's that Bloody Mary thing, isn't there?
Yeah, the Bloody Mary, yeah. Yeah, there's a few of them. But, we've done a few, and, I never had anything happen to me.
No, did you try it out, though?
Well, not all of them, no. Some of them, saying your name in front of the mirror and all that stuff. We did that one, and that was more of a school, going around the school. Everybody was trying to do it and going, oh, yeah, I did it and whatever. And of course, I had that kind of school friend, that's having an experience, thinking he saw an old man, which he thought he was himself. But we just think he was like overhyped about it and, wanted to see something. But there were other stuff as well. I'm trying to think. There was lots of things at school to do with the paranormal and to do with the supernatural, where if you did it or if something happened. Well, for example, in my junior school, when I went to junior school, the school I went to was an old Victorian school. So if you can imagine, the school itself was, it was cut down the middle. It was a mirror. The school was the same one side, left side, as it was the right side. And the reason for that was, back in the olden days, it was a boy-girls school. So all the girls were on one side, all the boys were on the other. The boys were in one playground, the girls were in the other playground. And the only time that the boys and girls would come together was in the meal times, dinner times and stuff like that. And we had this huge, at the front of the school, obviously the school's still there, so it's still a junior school. Let me just be clear, for listeners listening, when I say junior school, it's a school you go to up to the age of 12 years old. And then when you are 12, you move on to what we call comprehensive or secondary school, which is from 12 to 16. There's all different numbers now, and they call it different year 5 and year 4. When I was a wee lad, it was infants, junior, and then you had comprehensive, which was teenage. But anyway, that's just me being an old duffer. So basically, there was a big tower with a bell and a clock. And there was this rumour that went around the school that, and even the teachers would say it sometimes, in the olden days, 100 years ago, the school was built in like 18-something. A kid climbed to the top of the bell tower, and he didn't know the bell was going to ring, and the bell rang, and he startled him, and he fell out of the bell tower and fell to his death. And on certain times of the year, you see the boy in the bell tower. But the bell tower didn't ring anymore at school. It wasn't like something they rang all the time. I think the only time they rang it was when it was a fire drill or something like that. But it was only like emergencies. And people would say, yeah, I saw him. I saw the little boy in the bell tower. And you didn't know whether they were like making it up, just saying it or whatever. But it was a thing. And apparently the bell tower was haunted by a ghost of a Victorian boy who fell to his death in the 1800s. I never saw anything.
Have you ever done any research to see if there's any truth behind the story?
It's a good idea. I haven't really, no, but I think maybe I should. But the problem is, all of the teachers there now. I mean, I suppose you could go right to the school and ask them. But here's the thing: I've found that in my time of asking people about ghosts and about hauntings, if it's an official place, like for example, a church or a school or whatever, if you go up to them and it's like a working school or a working church, for example, I went on a holiday last year to St Albans, and that's one of the places we visited, and we visited St Albans Cathedral. Amazing place. I went there with my partner, and we're walking around, and she's going off looking at this is amazing, whatever. And me, I'm looking for ghosts. I'm looking for, because apparently there's hauntings there. A team went in there for it was a kind of a charity ghost hunt years ago, and they captured singing and choir singing when nobody else was in the cathedral. It's a phenomenon, they caught stuff. Of course, I go up to I go up to one of the guides there, because they got these people walking around who you can ask questions to, who know everything about the cathedral. And I say to him, is there any ghosts here? And he looks at me like I just called him a horrible name. And he's going, excuse me, ghosts, the hauntings in this building, is there anybody experienced? Have you ever experienced anything? And he looks at me and goes, there are no ghosts here, sir. I'm not thinking, yes, there are, because I know. But he didn't. He completely shut me down. He was like, no, you just get away. Look at the paintings and you get out. It was really weird. And I've had that a few times when you ask people because you want to learn a bit more, and they're like, "What? No, you'll go away." I have had that. But yeah, that's a good idea. I could do a bit of the old research, but very difficult. It's one of them things you think maybe is it an urban legend, but people say, "Oh, I saw something," but who knows?
Yeah, well, even if it's an urban legend, there's been experiments done, hasn't there, where someone makes up a ghost, or makes up a story of a ghost, and then they start seeing it, or other people start seeing it. It's like, I think sometimes you don't even need there to actually been a death or anything real, like a real event associated with it. I feel like sometimes if enough people believe in it, it's almost like the thing starts happening anyway.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that goes back to the Philip experiment.
The Philip,
in 1972, and it was conducted in Toronto, and it was basically a parapsychology research society, and they did the whole thing where they made a backstory about this person, and they did a seance. They did the whole Ouija board thing, and everything that they were making up was coming through to them, and they were being told a story that they of their own making, and they basically, in a way, conjured a personality, you know, a person, a ghost, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, the Philip experiment, that's fascinating. I watched, there's a documentary on that. If anyone that's interested, go to YouTube and type in the Philip experiment, and it's very old. Obviously it was done in 1972, so it's not going to be HD 4K quality, but the information within it is very interesting, and it kind of looks at the other side of Ouija boards and mediumship and life after death and all that stuff. It kind of looks at the other side, where are people that get a Ouija board and you're, oh yeah, I talked to an old man and he was from 1040 or whatever. Maybe you didn't. Maybe that's in your head, and maybe that was what coming through because you wanted it to come through. I don't know.
I'm reading a book. I can't remember the author off the top of my head. It's called Creatures from Inner Space, and it goes into all different paranormal cases where it seems more like the phenomenon is manifested from a person's mind than anything else. There's a case where there was a woman who she started having hallucinations about her father, and her father was still alive, but she'd see him like walking around when he wasn't there. Then she started having hallucinations that she'd see her husband in places where he wasn't. I think she had some kind of schizophrenia or something. There's a bit in the story as this book's relating it that she's walking towards her car with someone else with her. She hallucinates and sees her husband in the front seat of the car, and she knows he's not there. She knows it's a hallucination. But then her friends who's with her says, "Hey, is that your husband sat in the front of the car?" She goes, "That's really weird. It looks like he's there, but he looks like a bit like a shadow or something." So it's almost like her hallucinations start to actually affect other people, and it's almost like they start to manifest in the real world. There's a few cases like that.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of when people have group UFO experiences or group paranormal experiences, and they all see the same thing at the same time, and you think to yourself, if they're seeing something that isn't really real, okay, for example, they're in an old house, they're doing a ghost investigation, and they all see a brown lady or a white lady or whatever it is that's haunting the premises, and they all see her at the same time, but maybe there's one of the people there that don't see there's what the other group is seeing. Is it that there's one person there in that group that is in some way mentally projecting their thought of what they want to see onto those people that are susceptible, and that in some way those people are also seeing a mental projection of an apparition which might actually not be there? See, this is one thing that I've thought, okay, is when you go into a building and you have an experience, is that experience actually happening in real time in the material world? Or is the experience happening internally for the person? So if you hear something, okay, is that something that's audible in the real world, or is it something that's in your head and that you're still hearing phenomenon, you're still hearing something, but it's more likely that you're the only one that's kind of experiencing it, unless there's a group of people and you're all together. Do you kind of follow what I'm on about?
I've been on a similar train of thought recently. I kind of come to the conclusion it might be something like there is something external, but it's almost like it's not something you actually see or hear. Like, I'm trying to think of a way to explain it. Okay, like I've seen things where people let's say they take a device that's supposed to take an input from like a video source and project it onto a screen, but they put the wrong signal through it, like an audio signal. And this device will take the audio signal and turn it into an image on the screen, and it'll just be a load of random squiggles and things. And I was kind of thinking, what if humans are kind of the same thing? Like, we take input from the world and we sort of turn it into a source in our brain. So we take visual input and we turn it into, images in our brains, and same with our hearing and our other senses. But what if there's some other force that we haven't found, we haven't discovered with science yet, and our only way of interpreting it is with our senses, which only take certain inputs, and turn them into signals. So, say we come across this strange force. I don't know what you would call it, but we only have a way of interpreting it visually or hearing or smell, but it might not be anything like that. It might just be like, it's almost as if we're getting the wrong signal inputs, and we haven't got the apparatus to truly see what it is. It's just like something goes in and we just sort of interpret it in our minds or something. So that's why we might see something and other people might not. Or in some other, I've heard of cases where it happens a lot with like UFO encounters where there'll be multiple witnesses, but they'll all report seeing something similar, but they'll all have different details.
Yeah.
Like maybe the size of the creatures or some detail about what they look like. They all report seeing a different thing, even though they all were standing there looking at the exact same thing. It might be something like that. Like we're just, it's not actually something visual that we're seeing. It's just that's our only way of like processing it.
Well,
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. But I want to add to that a little bit. Slightly different take on things, but I want to add to it. I was reading one of the websites that I've linked to talk about was by, it's an article by Ben Alderson Day on the website The Conversation, and it's from April the 6th, 2023. And the heading is, What Science Can Tell Us About the Experience of the Unexplainable Presence. So I'm going to read the first, I'm going to read the first and maybe the third paragraph, but it says, if you've ever had an eerie sensation that there's a presence in the room where you were sure you were alone, you may be reluctant to admit it. Perhaps it was a profound experience that you are happy to share with others, or, more likely, it was something in between the two. It goes on to say, one of the largest studies on the topic was carried out as long ago as 1894. Society of Psychical Research published their Census of Hallucinations, a survey of almost 17,000 people in the UK, the US and Europe. The survey aimed to understand how common it was for people to have seemingly impossible visitations that foretold death. There's an interesting little bit that's coming up here. The SPR concluded that such experiences happened too often to be down to chance. 1 in every 43 people that were surveyed had this experience, right? So in 1886, the SPR, they published a paper called Phantoms of the Living. This collection was 701 cases of telepathy, premonitions, and other unusual phenomenon. For instance, the Reverend P.H. Newman of Devonport in Plymouth told the story of a visit to New Zealand where a nighttime presence warned him away from journeying on a boat trip at dawn the next morning. He later learnt that all on that voyage had drowned. Crazy, huh? So, I'm going to read the whole article. It'll be linked in the notes if you want to go read it. But what it's saying is that is there some form of outside force that can kind of like, tell us or warn us about things that are going on in our lives and say, look, that's a bit dodgy. It's like the inner self, when you're somewhere and you're not too sure about something and everybody says, trust your gut. Well, I do. I do now. You kind of, you have to, sometimes it's that kind of trust your gut. It's like, and this person has had, where do you think, all right, you're in bed, you're thinking about a voyage, I'm not sure, and then suddenly in your head a voice comes and says, do not go on the voyage. Where does that come from? Well,
it begs the question, doesn't it? Like, is this, you could say that this is just, he's had a strange feeling about this. We don't know what he knows about this boat. Maybe he's taken a look at this boat and is subconsciously he's picked up on something about the boat, which makes him think, he might not consciously know that something's going to happen, but maybe subconsciously he's just picked up something, and he's thought, or maybe just something about the weather. He's just something in the back of his head that he's not conscious of thinking. It's just like something's going to happen, a storm cloud's brewing, or that that boat might sink. I've sensed something in the structure of it, and this is just a manifestation of his own internal sort of sense of his instinct, or is it something external? Is it some, like, I don't know, a long dead relative who's come back to warn him, or a guardian angel? It's hard to tell, really, isn't it?
It makes me wonder, really racking my brains to think of the guy's name. He had this ongoing dream of an aircraft disaster. And night after night, he had this dream. It was always the same. It always happened in the same way. You could see this. He was in a field. He could see this aircraft, and it was falling to the sky, and it kind of landed, and it crashed, and it was all horrible, and everyone was sadly lost their lives. And it got to a point where he was writing letters and trying to get hold of the airport people to warn them. He didn't know what plane it was. He just knew that this was going to happen. It didn't know when it was going to happen, but he just felt in his bones that it was going to happen. And of course, he felt powerless because he didn't know. He couldn't say, it's this plane, it's going to happen on this day, and here's the number of the plane or whatever. And of course, the scenario that he described sometime later actually did happen. And it was almost like he was dreaming of an event that was going to happen, but he couldn't tie all the connections together to get an actual when it was going to happen. So that could say that we are in some way, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to touch on it. It could say in some way that we are on some sort of predestined journey in a way. Would you agree?
Yeah, but like he wasn't on the flight, was he? Or he wasn't.
No, he wasn't on the flight.
Was it a flight that he was booked to be on, or anything like that?
From what I remember, he was having these really vivid dreams of this event happening, and it was almost like he was there. He was watching it happen, and it got to the point where it was happening too much. And he tried to get hold of the authorities and give them as much information, but he was limited on what actual usable information. He just says, all he could say was, there's a plane and I think it's going to crash. Well, there's lots of planes. There's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of planes that fly every day. What makes this one any different? It's going to crash, but where, when? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose if you wanted to be skeptical about it, you could say, you dream about plane crashes for long enough, eventually one's going to happen, and you can say, oh, that's what I've been dreaming about,
Well, yeah, true.
I'm not saying that is what happened, but just from a skeptical point of view. There's always stories of people having strange dreams before disasters, isn't there? There's
like premonitions, yeah.
Yeah, like that tsunami that happened in, was it in Japan? Oh, I'm really bad with geography.
Tsunami?
Was there a tsunami in Japan?
Yeah, that was the one that happened with the flooded ground with their nuclear power plant, and it basically had to evacuate a whole region.
Yeah, and there was loads of stories of people having dreams just before that happened of tsunamis.
Well, there's lots of weird things that have happened around there. People have there's lots of paranormal stories from around that area. People seeing people in the vicinity that lost their lives from the tsunami, and all the awful stuff that happened afterwards from the flooding and stuff, and the buildings collapsing. And people have said, I've seen someone that was killed on that, and I've seen them like they were walking down the road. So there's lots of things that have been going on around there. If you could get a tent, right, and you could camp out at somewhere like Pompeii, where the volcano ash came down and covered the whole city, and everybody was encased with ash, and it all was very horrible. Maybe you could pick up on something there. Maybe you would have a paranormal experience there. I mean, these areas around the world where we have like tragedies, but some of them become paranormal kind of epicenters where things happen. Lots of weird things happen. And you could put that down to people's, you could say, oh, well, some people have got overactive imaginations and they're just seeing things that aren't really interpreted a different way. Or, maybe they are. Maybe they're tapping into something. It's like what I've always said. It's like whether you're a religious person or not, okay? I don't think religion plays a part in anyone having a paranormal experience. But I suppose in a way it plays a part the way that you want to interpret it. But that's the kind of afterthought. But to have an experience, we'll put all the religious stuff to one side, put that in the drawer for a minute. Whether you're a believer or a non-believer, and if you have an experience, it's the way that you want to interpret it afterwards is up to you. But it doesn't stop that person who doesn't believe in whatever, or doesn't believe in whatever, or somebody who does. It doesn't stop them from having an experience. So there's plenty of people out there that are complete atheists that have had a paranormal experience. They've seen something. They can't explain it. And it's like, okay. So maybe what are they tapping into? Are we tapping into something? I mean, what are your thoughts on going places and tapping into the history? Do you think that we have got that ability?
I think it seems likely, just from all the stories. I think it goes back to what I was saying about, when I went on that walk. It's hard to tell sometimes when especially when like somewhere like Pompeii, where you know the history of it, and it's so ingrained in what we learn about the world, and then to go to a place and sort of say, "Oh, I'm picking up on something." It's hard to tell really if that's something just because you expect to. I mean, I probably find more interesting is when I've heard stories of people going to a place that seems quite mundane and then seeing something strange, like, Roman soldiers marching down the road or something like that. And then later they go and look up the area and they found out there was a big battle in that area, but they had no previous knowledge of these things happening. And I always think those stories are more interesting. It seems to suggest that there is something that imprints itself on the landscape when there's been like a big battle or some disaster that's had a lot of emotional. I don't know what would be the word, like a big emotional outpouring, a lot of grief or a lot of fear or something's all happened at once, and it's almost like this accumulated energy has sort of imprinted itself on the area. And then you go and then it sort of plays itself back like a tape recording.
Talking about imprinting on an area, I got a story here, right? And I wouldn't say it's completely wacky, but it's a bit weird, right? Firstly, what are your thoughts on Disney? Do you go with all the urban legends and the weird stories centered around Disney and the Disney park that have been told over the years? What are your feelings on that?
I like those stories. I did a video once about Disney and just some of the weird. I didn't get to cover them all, but there's a lot of weird stories about that place. Yeah. Some of them I'm not sure if I buy them. There's a lot of like conspiracy theories and things. But yeah, there's been a lot of deaths at Disney parks, hasn't there? And they do say that they're haunted.
Yeah, there has. Some of them quite gruesome to me, actually. Decapitations and all that stuff, and it's all been kind of hushed up and made to be a bit quiet. Not because they want the people to be not acknowledged, but the fact I think it's more of a corporate thing. They don't want their corporate image to be. They want it to stay family friendly. But I was going to say that one of what I would call the urban legends of Disney is that they say that nobody has ever died on their park because they always take them outside of the park, and if they die, then they haven't died in the park.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the case, because if you are on a ride and you get decapitated, I think you're going to be pretty much dead from that point onwards.
Yeah, I did look into that a bit. From what I can tell, it's because a lot of people end up being declared dead in hospital.
Yeah.
So they'll be taken off the grounds and then declared dead once they get there. So I think that's, I'm not sure. There could be some truth to it, but I think that's where the legend comes from a lot of the time, is because something will happen to somebody, they'll collapse or have a fit or something, and then they'll be taken by ambulance to hospital, and then a doctor will look at them and declare them officially dead. So I think that probably happens in a lot of places, not just Disney.
Do you think that powerful corporation like Disney, that's got its fingers in many pies, and it's, you know, in media wise, it's kind of everywhere. Do you think they have got the power to control people's minds?
I don't doubt it. Yeah, the power that TV and movies have over our minds is quite scary.
Although it's not very paranormal, I think it's kind of stuff fascinates me. I saw this on the website, on Sky News website. I'm not really a legacy media reader. I tend to sort of look at these websites more for entertainment. So I saw this headline and I had to add it because I wanted to talk a little bit about Disney. Disney superfans' home is up for sale with huge murals and a sweet kingdom bedroom. Features characters from numerous Disney movies, including Aladdin and Peter Pan. Now this, I'm going to include the link with this episode, so it'll be linked. You just click on it and you can see it. So I'm going to describe it just for those that don't want to click the link. The guy's literally turned his home into a showcase for Disney. Everything is Disney. He's got murals on the walls in his front room. He's got all the collectible stuff. He's got all everything. He's got all the bits and bobs. He's got the chandelier. He's got the lot. And it says, Disney superfans dreaming of a whole new world may be found of what they're looking for in the form of a dream home. So this home is for someone who's like a 100% Disney fanatic. You know, that's their thing. Mm-hmm. That's what they're into. And no problem with that. I mean, if you're into something like that and that's your thing and you collect stuff, yeah, go for it. But I just think that this is like on another level. And I'm just wondering, is it the power of what we're saying about, you know, suggestion, control people and to make them think a certain way? So, and it's with the paranormal as well, when you're kind of in a way controlled a little bit by how you interpret something. What do you feel about this? Is it kind of like, is it a bit weird or what?
It's definitely weird. I mean, I'm looking at the pictures of the house. I mean, do you think it might be a product of some kind of Disney brainwashing that they've... In
a way, yeah. In a more general way, not just this guy. They haven't targeted. He is not like Project 101, where they're just going to target this guy and let's see if we can make him paint his whole house Disney. Well, I don't think it's that. But what I think is that the power of TV, movies, and media, how it can control the way that you think. And I think that when we go into the paranormal, you have to be careful because you can fall into that trap as well.
I don't know. I'm looking at the pictures and I'm just thinking, yeah, they're into Disney, I suppose.
Well, like I said earlier, my mum had one of those fires in 1987, I think. They were really popular. I think your mum had one as well, didn't she?
My grandma had one. Exactly the same.
They were like, if you had one of them, it was like the equivalent of having a telephone in 1981. You were a god. Apart from the telephone had a little lock on it and you couldn't make calls. So what you did is you little blipped on the top because it was an analog phone, so it'd get the number out. Yeah. We had a party line. So in those days, if you couldn't afford a full-blown telephone, you had a party line, which was much cheaper. You go halves with the neighbour and you would share a line, and then you'd pick up the phone. You'd pick up the phone and they'd be having a conversation. But if they weren't, you'd pick the phone up and there was a button on the phone. You pushed it and it would give you a line and you could dial out. But here's the downside of a party line. When you've got like kids, like a couple of, young kids like me and my brother, we would pick the phone up really quietly and put it up to our ear and make animal sounds. There you go. We were little kids. There wasn't no Netflix or anything back then. You had to make your own entertainment. But there you go.
Yeah, I think lines sometimes used to just get crossed, didn't they? Because I don't think we had a party line, but I remember one time when I was a kid just picking up the phone and hearing like two women having a conversation.
Yeah, you get cross lines. No one else
was on the phone. I just was like, what?
Yeah, you get cross lines. Yeah, you get cross lines.
That's weird, isn't it?
Because back in those days, you would get an operator, and they would connect calls, and it would, I mean, obviously there was automation, but sometimes the automation wouldn't go through properly. It was all mechanical, and you'd get across the line, and you would pick up your phone, and there'd be like some geezer on the other end talking about his cucumbers or whatever. But we had a party line that was like a shared phone line between two households, and you had to kind of I don't know how it worked, but you kind of went halves on it, because the phones back then was so, that was like so expensive to have a phone. And if you had a phone, it was like, oh, you got a phone, can I come around and touch it? It was that.
Yeah.
And all the phones were the same. It was all like that GPO phone. You could, and then later on, a little bit later on, you could kind of up, if you had like a rich friend, right? They didn't have like a standard phone, like a standard GPO ring phone. They were a little bit more sci-fi. They had a trim phone, which was like a pickup phone. It was more futuristic, and it made a trilling sound when it rang. So yeah, they were. If you had a trim phone, then your mates had money. Their mum was a manager at Boots, and their dad was a bank manager. They were a little bit more up the ladder. Trim phones. I wouldn't mind a trim phone now. Actually, they're quite cool. But anyway, so that's nothing to do with paranormal, though, is it? But there you go. So I
It's always the way with these episodes when we do. We're just talking about random stuff. It's like, right, we're going to talk about weird websites, and then we just talk about telephones and Disney and stuff.
Do you want to do one of these, or I was going to do the Mermaid one? Do you want to do the Mermaid one?
I'll have a look.
All right, have a look at the Mermaid. I'm going to let you do this one, because I don't want to be hogging everything. Gruesome monkeyfish hybrid dragon claw mermaid mummy thing.
Yes, haunting mermaid mummy from Japan is gruesome monkeyfish hybrid with dragon claws, new scan reveals. So scientists have scanned the mummified remains of a supposed mermaid from Japan. The initial results suggest it is a horrifying mix of fish, monkey, and lizard parts. Let's have a look. So this was brought back to the US from Japan more than 100 years ago. And
it's a bit gruesome, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen a few like this, where they've just got random animal parts and sewn them back together. It reminds me a bit of those. Do you see in the news recently? There was those aliens. Supposed
the aliens with they did all the scans on and stuff, and I don't know. They look like they were made of. They look like they're made of polyfiller. That
they did, but I think they did scan them and found skeletons inside them or something like that. So they think it might have been like monkey skeletons, or it was aliens. I don't know. I'm open-minded.
But there's a bigger one as well, isn't there? There's the two little ones, and then there's a bigger one as well. And it's kind of I don't know. I mean, I've not seen them. I don't know. I didn't do the research. I didn't go and visit them, so I don't know. But they do. When you look at them, you think, oh, why are they like that? Are they thousands or millions of years old? How did they get like that? I mean, if something mummifies, surely it would still look reasonably human. It's not going to just turn to stone, but it looks. I think they
said it was left in like one of those caves that sort of calcifies everything that's in it. I think there's one of them in the UK.
Yeah, I just don't know. I'm always very stuff like that. I'm always very skeptical about. But I mean, it's just natural for me to, from me anyway, the way to be skeptical. I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm saying that I'm not just going to go, yeah, it's real. Yeah, it's real. I'm not going to say that. I need more information. But getting onto this little monkey hybrid dragon claw thing. I just want to say that the haunting mummy, which is around 11.5 inches, that's 29 centimeters long, is known as the Fiji Mermaid due to its similarities with other of the same name. So apparently this is acquired from a showman in the, what year was it? 1840s. So it was on one of these, remember these, in the olden days when you had these like, traveling shows where you'd have all these, like the lady with the beard and the really tall man and the guy with like an extra leg and all that stuff. So one of them, a traveling circus, like I don't want to say that word, but you know what I mean. So it was one of them. So yeah, I don't know. I look at stuff like this and I think, maybe, like you said, maybe it is like maybe it was like a monkey that, I don't know, maybe it was born wrong, or maybe they sewed something else onto it, like a bit of.
It seems like that's what it is. It says it's they found like wood and other bits inside it. But I mean, looking at it, I don't see why they even bothered to scan it. It's obviously a monkey's head sewn onto the body of a fish. You know, it doesn't look like anything else to me. Like, it's almost as if it's like the scientists have discovered what it obviously looks like. It's a decapitated body of a fish and likely Komodo dragon nails that have been stuck into it. The monkey's head on the top. That's what it looks like.
Remember those two guys that sold they said that they was over in the south in America. I think it was the south. It was over in America anyway. And this is a few years back. Big thing. About 10 years, I think. 10 years ago? I can't remember. But they were... they made a big thing about... we was hunters. And they said that they'd killed a Sasquatch. They'd shot him dead. They said he's for sale. They wanted $15,000, or it was quite a considerable amount of money they wanted for the body. And that the Sasquatch was in a freezer on their property, and anyone was welcome to come and see it. Oh, I saw some pictures of it. It was literally in a block of ice. It was a huge block of ice. So you couldn't just go and touch it. It was literally a block of ice. And eventually people were able to do tests and that, and it was basically part of like other animals that were all put together and made up to look like a real flesh and blood, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. But it wasn't. And the guys were apparently trying to pull a fast one and get some easy lolly. But you think about it, right? Me and you were out in the woods, and I'd say to you, listen, Tom, we want to make some easy money here. What we're going to do is we're going to say that we shot a Sasquatch, and then we're going to put him in your freezer. But we're not actually going to be a Sasquatch. What we're going to do is we're going to put some pigs together and some cow stuff, and we're going to make it look like a Sasquatch. And then we're going to freeze it so no one can touch it. And then we're going to sell it. We're going to put it on eBay. Sooner or later, you're going to get found out, aren't you?
Hopefully, by the time you've made your money, it doesn't matter anymore.
You
find a sucker and you sell it to them, and then by the time they find out it's not really a Sasquatch body, you're well away then.
How would you get your money back on eBay for that? If it was, what kind of feedback would you give? It's not real. It's not real. It's a dummy puppet thing with guts in it.
Yeah, well, you just have to put it as sold as seen.
Sold as seen.
No refunds.
No refunds. Yeah. Sold as seen. No refunds. What's the other one they say? There's something else you say on eBay.
A lot of time when they're selling like computers and things, it's listed as for parts.
For parts not working.
Attic find. I haven't tested it, so it basically means it doesn't work. Something like that.
It basically doesn't work. If you're saying I haven't switched it on, I haven't got a plug for it, it's not been tested, you mean it's broken. That's what you mean.
Yeah.
But you still want the same amount of money for it as if it were working. But you want to trick me into thinking that it just needs a battery. But it doesn't need a battery because it's not worked for 40 years and it's completely seized up and broken.
Yeah. So you could sell it as like, it appears to be a Sasquatch. You could word it in a way that, it doesn't mean it definitely is. Just, it looks like a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
What appears to be a Sasquatch.
It might be a Sasquatch. I don't know how it got in the fridge.
Just give us the money and then you can check for yourself.
What happened was, we heard a noise. I said, don't worry about it, Tom. It's just a cat. And then in the morning we woke up and we went to the fridge to get some, some chips. And there was a Sasquatch in there. And it was frozen. Well, we think it's a Sasquatch, but we're not sure. But we're going to sell it anyway, just in case. Before we disappeared for this episode, I wanted to ask you, like I always do, because it's important, because I want to know when you're going to do another Walking with Tom video.
You like that one, did you?
I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got my books. I've got like if I turn around in my room now, I've got a little sofa in the room, and it's covered in books of local stories, paranormal, and stories of weird, grisly murders and things. And I've been going through them, and I don't.
Did you get any like funny look when you were filming? Like, did you get people like looking? What's he doing? What's he doing? What's he going in that bush for?
No, I was worried that I was going to. There was a bit where I stood outside a library filming like a road, and there was people coming out, and I thought, are they going to think I'm one of those auditors?
Yeah,
you seen those?
Yeah.
Those people who stand outside
doing
and
audits,
film.
With the police.
I thought they're going to think I'm one of them, but I don't. I watch these YouTubers who go out in public and just film and talk, and I can't like. I get so like self-conscious. I've just got to wait for people to go away, and I can't just talk into the camera while someone's there because I feel too awkward. It makes me cringe so bad. But I'm looking at the books on my sofa, trying to think of what I've seen that I was thinking about going to have a look at, but I can't. No.
Is there any like a ruined place that you can just go to that's collapsed that it's got like a little bit of a backstory to it, like an old.
Yeah, there's
you
a
don't
few
have to
places.
pay to go there. It's like free, you can just go there.
Yeah, there's a few places. There is a few interesting places. And there's a few places where there's an interesting like poltergeist story, but the house that was there doesn't exist anymore.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I'm thinking, can I go there and just film the area? But then there's nothing there to actually look at. It's just like the footprint of a house, or maybe there's something completely different in its place. So I don't know. I do plan on doing another one like that. I did enjoy doing it. It doesn't get many views compared to my normal stuff, but I just do them because I like to get out the house.
The kind of people that like that aren't the same kind of people that watch your main channel content, because your main channel content is completely different. But I thought it was interesting. It's got that kind of ASMR thing about it, where you just chill and eat your dinner and go on a bit of a journey for 20 minutes.
I like watching YouTubers who go out and like there's a channel I like called The Missing Enigma, and he's all about missing person cases, and he actually goes. I mean, that's probably what inspired it. Really, he goes out to the location and films it, and I always feel like that adds something more to a story. Really,
I actually watched the last episode that he did of a missing persons, and he went out and he camped out for like I think 2 nights or something in the forest and like in a national park, and it's like, God, the guy's got some balls doing that. It's like that's dedication. That's dedication. You got to know where you're going and how to. In case, I mean, because he's looking everywhere. He's looking for. He's trying to find someone. Somebody that just went disappeared, and that's some dedication there. That's a good channel. That I'd advise anyone that go Google it, Google it, or go look it up on YouTube. It's a good channel, and he does a proper like in-depth report on every case. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I like that channel. Yeah, I like anything like that when they go out. But I don't know. I've always been a bit insular, and I like sitting in front of the computer all day and just researching, but I felt like I just needed to get out and do something outside. So yeah, I do plan to do more like that, but I haven't yet found. There's a lot of stories around here where they're kind of they're more like folklore legends. Like there's a story of there's a few stories of like a big giant worm or like a dragon that comes out the ground, and there's certain places where it's supposed to live. There's like a campsite quite near me where supposedly there's the lair of a big giant worm underneath it. But I don't know. I don't know if that's as interesting as like a murder or a ghost story, but I don't know, maybe.
Well, we've got a few places around here. Being Weston being a Victorian town, there's a few Victorian ghost stories around here, which are on my to-do list. But it's like you say, it's just it's having the time to do it, and you got to be kind of in the right mindset, the motivated mindset to think, yes, I'm going to do this today, and I know what I'm going to do. I've got a plan, and sometimes, like you say, you just got to walk out the door and go, I don't care. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to see what happens. And usually, sometimes that's the best way to do it, because you don't plan, you just do it, and you just come back with whatever you got. and you make it work. Sometimes that's the best way. Who knows, But how about the gaming? How's that going? Are you still doing your live streams with the gaming?
Yeah, most weekdays I'm doing a live stream about 5 o'clock UK time, 5 till 7. I'll do a little stream. It's going all right.
Awesome.
It's quite a small Twitch channel, to be honest, but it's fun.
Good.
Gives me like all day I'll be editing a video or researching, and then the end of the day I kind of feel like it's a nice break, but it still makes me feel like I'm doing something, doing a little live stream.
Back in the day, I was a big gamer, and I had the PC and all that all set up just to play games like Quake and Doom and all that stuff. And I was really into my gaming. And as I got older, I've kind of mellowed with my games. And the games I play now are not games I would have played when I was younger. I mean, now I'm playing like Euro Truck Simulator, delivering wood, and other games like that. I would have never played them back then. But it's more of a, like you say, it's more of a chill thing now. I play games to sort of relax.
Old man games, I like them as well. I'm playing a game called The Long Drive. I don't know if you ever played that.
Yeah, The Long Drive.
It's just a 5,000 mile long road, and you're just driving along it. It takes like 30 hours or something.
Is that the one with the rabbits?
Yeah, the killer rabbits. Yeah, it's good. It's good fun. I'm enjoying it. It's just it's an old man game. I think you just driving along the road for hours on end.
It needs more things to drive to. So
it
needs, like, I think one of the things I like about video games is I like games where you can play them and discover. One of my favorite games to play is GTA games, because you can go onto the map on multiplayer and you can go and discover stuff, go and look for things, and I love doing that. Go off with a mate online and go and try and find stuff, and like you didn't know was like in GTA you got the you got the Bigfoot. You go and find the Bigfoot, or go and find the aliens or whatever. It's great, that stuff. Fallout with the aliens, you go find the aliens, stuff like that. It's brilliant. I love stuff like that. But anyway, it's not a gaming channel. It's not Paragaming. It's Paratalk. So
now let's just talk about games for another hour.
Let's just do a Para. That's what we're going. This is another episode. We're going to do a Paratalk episode about paranormal games and ghost games.
We've already done one of them.
Have we?
I think we have.
Well, I
feel like we did one about Berserk and stuff like that.
Oh, we did. You are right. We're going to do a part 2. Tom, we're going to do a part 2. I don't know what's going to be in it, but I have to go and listen to part 1 to make sure we'll do a part 2, and we're going to do some more modern paranormal games. I think, there you go. It's going to be a video game episode. But anyway. So I'm gonna end it now, because I've just been waffling forever. Anyway, I know you got things you need to do, but I want to thank everybody. If you stayed for this long of my inept waffling for however long we've waffled for, thank you very much. It's very nice of you to do so, and thank you for your support. Remember to like and share wherever you may hear this podcast. Give a little review and click a few stars, whether that be YouTube or Amazon or not Google anymore, is it? Because that's gone. Wherever it might be. And thank you again, Tom, for joining me. As of course, Tom will be back again at some point, because he's a very busy man. He's got a schedule, and I have to fit in around what he's doing. Thanks again. Thanks, Tom. And thank everybody for listening, and talk to you soon.